Welcome to All About the Experiences. I am so pleased to have yet another episode. We are literally on episode 22, if you can believe that. So I'm totally excited at the opportunity to continue to bring you great talent, great entrepreneurs, just great people in general. And there's a theme there. I'm surrounding myself with great people, and today is no different. I definitely, before I get into today's podcast, is I want to give a shout out to last week's guest, and that was Chuck Hawkins. He has the Hawk Vision podcast. Let me tell you, he is doing great things in the greater Bay Area, but we share a connection being both from Oakland, California. So, with that being said, thank you, Chuck, for coming out and blessing the platform. And may you have continued success in all that you're doing. And as your hashtag says, because of greatness. So, because of greatness, I again continue to surround myself with amazing people. And like I said, today is no different. Some say the definition of a true hustler boils down to the persistence and the consistency of the person. Well, today's guest is no stranger to any of these concepts. Though he is familiar with failure, he is even more well versed with its older, wiser sibling, success. His story is one of persistence, and it also fostered his success. He hails from the Western Road area of Toronto, Canada. Growing up, he was interested in two things: basketball and music. And regardless of his focus, being trained specifically on either of these key interests at any given time, the other one was never far behind. From a time of struggle in school at a young age, due to boredom or lack of interest in what was going on in front of him, his opportunity to excel arrived in the form of a performance at his annual school talent show, and it spawned his love affair with music and all that it had to offer him. His music highlights his formative years growing up, his familiar and romantic relationships, and the beginnings of his musical journey and the directions in which the journey has taken him. More importantly, his music profoundly underscores the plight of being a young Black man and the challenges that are faced daily, because we all know Black Lives Matter. He has been in the music game for many years. Longevity in his game can only be attributed to the pure love for music. As an entrepreneur, he has created a brand that supports his dream. We will touch on this throughout our conversation today. And so, without further delay, I welcome Blockz to All About the Experiences Living Without Limits podcast. How are you doing? And welcome to sunny San Diego.
I wish I was there.
I certainly wish you were here too. I hear that you guys are having a bit of snow there in Toronto, correct?
Yeah, so the storm that they had in New York, it hit us as well. Usually we get the same weather because we're so close, right? New York and Toronto were attached. So a lot of people don't
Absolutely,
realize that, right?
for
So
sure.
we get the same snow weather that they usually get. So yeah,
Well, I
we didn't get as bad, but we got some snow.
Well, I certainly will be sending you some of this Cali sunshine your direction, but I have to tell you, there's times, I mean, I've lived in colder climates and you have to appreciate the change in the seasons. I mean, it's something to be honored and revered, but definitely, I know when you're in it, sometimes you're thinking, okay, just a little sunshine would be okay.
Yeah, you know what, man? To be honest, it's like I love the snow and all that stuff. Holiday time, once it's done, I want it to go away.
I
Right?
get
Like
it.
I don't know. For me personally, I want to say maybe 6 years ago, I started coming out to California, and I was going out to California on business, music, and clothing, and I fell in love. I was like, this is where I need to be. So I was in Cali 3 times a year, pretty much.
Awesome. Well, we welcome you back whenever you can come, and definitely in the way of building your business. And I mean, just to get into it, I always love to share with people how we even know each other. And so I have to be honest with you. I don't even know if I shared this story with you, but I have followed you on Instagram for many years now. And I was like really impressed with your music and business acumen. And I have to tell you, the initial thing that drew me to your page, it was in my feed. And I saw that there was a drugs clothing line. And I was just like, drugs? Like, what is he promoting here? And so, I mean, that's what initially brought me. And I came to your page and I was just like, no, what is he talking about? I mean, I see that he's a musician and he's doing multiple different ventures. And then when I saw the acronym for what drugs stood for, which is do right, you gain success, I was just like, oh, I'm here for all of that. And so I was just like, oh, well, hello, that was the draw. It brought me in to see what you were talking all about. And so tell the listeners and the viewers a little bit about drugs.
So, drugs. The actual company's name is Gorgeous Gangsters. Now it is the U brand. So obviously, it's just changing a branding. Same company,
Okay.
same people involved. Essentially, it was a clothing brand that was started by somebody named Jose Messiah. Um, where I come in play is I was an artist and I got introduced to his brother, Rich
Okay.
Messiah. And we started doing work. And when we started to pound the pavement, we started actually in Toronto and trying to break out, right? A lot, if you know me well, most of my family is actually in New York. So
Okay.
I have heavy ties in New York. I have people in Florida. I have my aunt, she's out in Cali. So I have like most of my family's in the States. So I used to spend a lot of the time in the States, like legit. I was leaving Toronto once, sometimes twice a month to be in the States.
Okay.
So uh, I kind of have that US background, right? And Jose Messiah, Rich Messiah, both of them are actually from Brooklyn originally. So both of them being from there, I think that connection of Brooklyn, because that's where my family's from, it just, we connected automatically. But we were like, you know what, we're in Toronto now, let's push from Toronto outward.
Okay.
And we tried. I'll be honest with you, a lot of people don't know this, but Toronto was a very difficult city. Um, the support's not that strong in the city. Um, so it was very difficult. We had a lot of challenges. And then, we sat down one day and we're like, yo, none of this is working. We don't understand why. So we were like, yo, why don't we do what we know best, which is go back to the States and then push from there. And once we did that, everything took off.
Okay.
Um, we started doing, uh, we did This Is 50. That was our first big break. And once we did This Is 50, it just like everywhere went nuts, even back home. So when in Toronto, people now started to recognize what we were doing. So where that comes in with drugs is at the time when I started to heat up, Rich's brother, Apple, Jose Messiah, he started to take notice of what I was doing. So he's like, yo, you know what? I want to sign you. So thought about it. I was like, okay, fine, let's do it. So he became management. But at that same time, all at the same time as that was happening, he had started the drugs, quote unquote, part of the brand. So it just happened all at once. So I was there for the beginning of most of that stuff, all the first hats, the first shirts, everything. So hand in hand, I was like, okay, well, I'm doing the music business. I'm connected with the brand. Why am I not selling?
Right.
So I'm like, listen, I'm just gonna start selling the clothes. And you know, at the time, didn't have too much money. Got a little bit of money in my hand, and I took a risk, and it paid off.
Well, some of the best stories start off that way. It's all about risk taking and stepping out on faith to make something happen. And, going back a little bit, you said that, in order to get that push and that initial start, you came back to the States. What was it that kind of prompted, would you say, that pickup of people wanting to embrace the brand and the music that you were doing in Toronto? What was it that really gave you that push when you came back to the States?
I think it was the connections to the people that we were connected to that stood out for everybody, right? Because in this, like, we have Drake, we have Tory Lanez, we have The Weeknd. We don't have a slew of artists from our city that have made it on that major scale. So when you're doing something in the city, everyone kind of looks at it and they're like, well, everyone's kind of doing something, but you're not really going anywhere.
Right.
Right. So it's not until you make that connection with a bigger artist and bigger people. And, thank God I had Jose in my corner, because he's a guy, and like his story is legendary. Like, one of my favorite quotes from him was, he's like, I've never worked a job in my life. He's never worked a regular job ever in his life. He's hustled from the beginning to now. And so, I think one of his first groups he even brought to Toronto was, I think, Wu-Tang.
Wow.
So he's tied in like this with Wu-Tang. And then, he ends up meeting all these other people, French Montana, Chris Brown, like you name it, we've been affiliated with these people. So when people are watching that now and they're like, oh, this drugs brand is connected with all these people, Little Kim, anyone you could think of, Wyclef, they're like, okay, that's what we're looking at. That's the star in the sky. So for me to hold on to that star now, they're like, oh my God, he's holding on to that star. He has to be this person. So I think from that moment, it was like, that was a connecting factor, and everyone home was like, you know what? You're doing your thing.
I love it. And there's nothing like having that hometown support, for one. And then it's also nothing like, they always say it's all in who you know. It's all in who you know, and it may be that is your break or your way in. And also, I will say this, it's the tenacity that comes behind it, and the push and the drive. And again, in the intro, when I was introducing you, it was about, you have a love of music, you have a love of sports, obviously, in basketball, but when you have that passion that drives that force, naturally, when that comes together, even when you have failures and when you have successes, it will continue to push you forward. So it sounds like that is definitely a driving force for you.
150%. It's so important. The passion is everything, because I know for me, with music, I stepped into the business side. So I'm like, okay, I'm focused on the business side of music, and I'm so focused on, okay, what studio am I going to be in? Who's shooting my video? What am I going to wear? All these other things besides the actual music, that you don't think that, yo, this came from passion. So it's not until afterwards. I'll tell you my moment when I was like, yo, the passion paid off for me. I actually came to LA. So I came for BET Awards.
Okay.
Came out to LA, landed in LA, and I had a friend in LA, and my friend was like, yo, let's go take a ride. Where do you want to go? I said, yo, no, like, from here, I'm from the projects over here. So I was like, yo, take me to the hood. I want to see what,
you're like, I want to see what the hood looks like in California and LA.
Exactly. So the first place that they went was where they were from, was South Central.
Okay.
And funny enough, rest in peace, Nipsey. That's somebody else we had a huge connection with when it comes to drugs. Jose and Nipsey had a relationship. So rest in peace to him. He'll be missed. But that's the first place I went, Slauson. First place I went, and I remember, I think it was a Burger King. I was like, I'm hungry, so my friend pulled up at the Burger King, and I'm in Slauson, close to Slauson. I was like, I can't remember, 30 something. I had my shirt off. I was in a beater. My chain was on, and I'm laid back in the whip. This girl comes up to the car, and she knew my friend. So they're talking, and then the friend looks over and it's like, oh my God, is that Blockz? So I'm thinking in my mind, like, what?
Someone recognizes you.
God, I love your music. And they start singing the song. That's when I was like, yo, damn, this really does pay off.
Certainly.
When you stick to the passion and you hustle, it was the music that they heard. It was the passion that I delivered on my first record that they heard that got me to where, to that point.
That's what's up. I love it. I absolutely love it. And that has to be one of those defining moments where you're like, when someone recognizes everything that you've poured your heart, your sweat, blood, and tears into, you have to feel like, okay, I now have arrived and I'm here to stay.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, tell me this. I mean, I know we also talked about your love of basketball. Are you still out on the court? Are you still hooping? What's up?
I wish. So okay, so I as a youth when I was in high school, I balled and I really took it serious. Like I was a real baller. Like, you know, people tell you I play basketball or I
Right.
play football. No, I played. Like I played. So I had a pathway at one point to West Virginia. Um, didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I ended up staying here. And you know, I'll tell you, coaches, anyone who's seen me play, they were like, "We don't understand why you're not in the NBA or you're not, you know, in a college D1 school." So it was everything to me, like everything. Basketball was everything. I actually did decide to go and try out for the NBA.
Wow.
I was a little out of shape. I'm not even gonna lie. So I said, you know what? In this story, this is to kind of tell you that, you know, when you're meant to do something, you're gonna get put on that path, right? Like, so I'm looking at this thing because you know, I ball with my little brother, I ball with family. Everyone's like, you still got it. Like, there's not, you didn't miss a beat. So I said, you know, I called this guy, one of my friends, his name's Ox, and he's a trainer. I said, Ox, I need to train. I need to get back into the gym. I need a ball. I said, I think I want to try out for the NBA. And he's seen me ball before. So he's like, I'm not even going to question you. He's like, let's do it. He said, but you got to give me 2 weeks. So I said, I'm like, why? He's like, he tore his Achilles.
Oh my. Okay.
So I'm like, okay, Ox, like, no problem. I'll just play pickup ball until you're ready.
Right.
2 weeks pass. I call Ox. Ox is like, yo, I'm ready. I'm like, I'm not. So he's like, what do you mean you're not? I said, I tore my Achilles. So I tore
Stop.
my Achilles, yeah, and that was it. Like I was just like, it's a wrap. I had to essentially, I don't know if anyone's familiar with that injury. You have to learn to walk again.
Oh,
You
for
know, on that.
sure. It's a
So
severe injury. Yeah.
yeah. So now I have my son, T, or I call him T Magic. His actual middle name is Magic.
I love it.
So he plays. He's 10. He's really good. So I'm working on him.
I love it. Well, hey, sometimes our instruments are not necessarily that we're going to be using or in the physical sense, but definitely, I mean, you have many other talents and talk about having a plan B. There
Yeah.
you go. So herein lies the music. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, what truly inspires you musically?
I've always just been different when it comes to music. Like, um, you know, as a baby, like I can legit remember like 3.5 years old, just listening to things that were a little bit older, and I just loved music. It didn't matter what it was. It could have been country. If I liked it, I liked it, right? And I also had an older brother, my brother Ryan. He was heavy into music. Like
Okay.
he had well, back then it was tapes, right? He had every tape you can think of, and I just take the tapes and go listen to it, like nonstop, and just take in music. Um, Over here, believe it or not, we didn't really have a main hip hop R&B radio station for a while. We had something from Buffalo called BLK. So
Okay.
I used to listen to BLK all the time, and it just grew from there. At school one day, I remember one of the teachers was like, "Oh, we're gonna do a rap about school." So I was like, "All right," and I sat down there and I was like, I did a little rap, and I was like, "Damn, I could rhyme. I could put these words together," and it just spiraled from there. Like I just, in a good direction, I should say, but I just started and I just never stopped.
So tell me about that talent show where you were in that talent show and you're in front of probably a room full of your peers. What was it that inspired you to give all that you could in that performance that has propelled you to where you are right now?
So okay, that's funny that you asked that question right after what I just said. Right? Is I kind of left this part out of my bio, but I actually used to sing. So so
What?
what?
I love
Yes,
it.
as a kid I would sing. So,
Okay.
and I didn't know this. I didn't, obviously, because if anyone who sings, at first you're not thinking about it, you're just singing like naturally. So this was around 112's first album.
Okay.
I was singing, and one day I was in the room, shared a room with my brother, and he went out, and I was singing 112, and he actually walked in, and he was like in shock, like he's like, "You can sing?" And he went
I
and
mean,
told
is it
everyone he could.
possible that we can get like a few lines of
Listen, puberty hit. I'm done.
that?
I was done. I tried to carry it, but I didn't have no training. But at the
Gotcha.
same time, I was rapping, right? So I didn't rely on singing anymore because I'm like, I rap, so I stopped. But yeah, that's what it was for. The talent show was, we actually did Only You 112.
Okay.
And um what was funny was, we did, obviously it was a group of us, and we had practice almost every day. But I have a shy side to me, and in the
You
shy on
don't
the
say.
my shy side wouldn't allow me to practice in front of them. So every time it was my turn, they were like, "Okay, go ahead and sing." I'd hum a little and be like, "You know what? Don't worry, I got you guys when time to hit the stage." So they were all worried. I'm not even gonna lie to you. They were worried as hell. They were like, "We don't know what to expect. We don't know what's
Right.
gonna happen." I ended up hitting the stage and blowing everyone away. Even my music teacher, I hated music class, to be honest with you, because I felt it boxed me in. I didn't like it. But my music teacher was like, "Yo, you could sing." She was in shock. Everyone was in shock.
Wow.
That was that moment that like pushed me, where I realized, because as I said, I was so shy that I'm like, I can't perform in front of people, you know. And it's funny because me personally, if you tell me to perform in front of two people, I probably won't do it. Give me give me 7 million people, I'll do it. I'll do it when it's a big crowd, when it's a big stage. I could do it.
When
You
that
know,
stage presence kicks in, huh?
yeah, it's a totally different feeling.
Well, that definitely was a little known fact that I didn't know, and I don't think I've ever read in any of your bios before. So thank you for sharing that with me and the listeners. I want to ask you a little bit more about, I mean, obviously, music is what definitely inspires you, and I understand, you know, the transition from basketball and putting your sole focus into music, but who makes the man that we all know as Blockz? Who are you? And what does a day in your life look like?
Um, hmm, I'm father first, so my kids
Shout
take
out the
up.
kids if you like.
Yeah, Tafari, Malia, Nai, keep me busy. Very. um and also, the other thing as well is, when it comes down to it, is, to be honest with you, is business. um and I had to transition to that because a lot of it was prior, and I'm not gonna be scared to say it, was sleep. Like, we all have that side that's like, okay, just rest a little bit, chill out, play some video games, go out to the club. Nah, like, business has taken over my life in the way where I'm just learning. Like, if you don't see me on a live, if you don't see me dropping a video, or new music, or or with my kids or my family, any of that stuff, it's actually business. I study. Legit sit down and study, and that is what's building me now, is understanding business, and from every single aspect, right? I do the merch, Hustler's Dream.
Yes, hustler's
uh,
dream. And can
I
I
still.
just say this? I love that sometimes the term hustle has a negative connotation to it, but I think you truly put a positive spin on that because we all know to hustle means that you are grinding, you are out there, you are making it happen, you are have a vision and you're bringing it to fruition. And so I appreciate the fact that you have definitely put a whole new spin on what it means to be a hustler, what it means to hustle, and much like you did with the word drugs, that it. it's all in the perception of things, you know, and you definitely have enlightened me, and I'm sure a lot of other people who follow you, because let me tell you, your social media is popping. It's like daily, hourly, there's always something coming out, and it's always is something that's positive. No matter
Yeah,
what you're talking about, I've noticed even in your music, you may be painting a picture of what's happening in that hood that you grew up in, or things that are happening around us in the world. I mean, let's face it, we have a lot going on, but you also sandwich it in there with something definitely positive. And so for that, I know that I'm a fan, and I'm sure all of your fans are appreciative of that, because we have to find some sort of positivity in all of this.
yeah. Like, you know, I try my best. Like I was telling somebody 2 days ago or a day ago, something like that. I was telling them, I'm like, if you actually listen to my music, you never hear me call a female B word.
No.
And they're like, what? Like, you serious? I'm like, go back and listen. It's just, why take a negative approach to a woman when there's so much positive? I just don't understand it for me personally, right?
I get it.
Um, it's just different. Like even my new record, Don't Lie About It. It's sexual in some points, but at the same time, if you really think about it, I'm talking about the women who, you know, quote unquote, are so prim and proper that they might have a little behind, but they ain't gonna tell you they have a behind. You know what I mean? You gotta talk a lot about it. You know you got a behind, right? So it's always coming from that positive. I've always been a positive person and looking at things from a different standpoint, right? Like even going back to, when you're talking about the hustling mentality, and I'm gonna be 100 because it's the only way to have people understand and learn. Is I used to be that guy. If you tell me I sold drugs, whatever, like had guns, whatever, I'd done all that stuff. What took me out of that, and at a very young age, I didn't get out of that at, like, later on in my life. It was early, was just understanding business,
Mm.
right? Like I sat down one day and I thought about it, right? I'll actually tell you a little story. What happened was there's a beach here. Me and a bunch of my friends, we went up to this beach and I planned to go up there and sell drugs. So I had drugs all over me, like socks, jacket, everywhere. And we're driving. It was, I think, a long weekend, so that the strip down there was packed. And a police car comes very close with the sirens on. I'm freaking. I'm like, shit, I gotta take this shit out. I gotta get rid of it.
You're like,
And
uh-oh.
I'm like, okay, I gotta throw this somewhere. And, they actually didn't pull us over. So we ended up getting back home now. And I sat down and I thought about it. And I was young. I was a teenager. I'm thinking about this. I'm like, shit, like, what am I doing? Like, does this make sense? And I really brought it, broke it down. And I was like, okay, we look at this and you're selling drugs, you're doing something that's illegal. It's not set up as a business. You ain't writing anything off. You know,
Right.
uh, how much money can you really make? Even those little things, if you really think about it, right? You can take something that's next to nothing, brand it, flip it, and actually probably make more than you would selling drugs. So I'm like, then why am I doing this? Like, I was like, this makes no sense. I'm done. And ever since
Major
that,
epiphany.
yeah, I was stuck on the actual, what I call the hustle. Like, understanding, you take that mentality, you could sell anything, you could do anything. So, I was already with, drugs, the brand, and this is how we got to even Hustler's Dream. Is I had that same mentality. I took it and I said, you know what? At the time, Apple, who ran it, was, he was under the weather, so he wasn't producing. So I went to him and I got his blessing. I said I wanted to do something that was a joint venture with drugs, and I wanted to call it Hustler's Dream. He said, okay, I'll give you my blessing. Let's do it. But because he was ill for a while, we didn't get to do the collab. But I continued doing Hustler's Dream. You know what I mean? But that mentality of, oh, you could take this and flip it into that and do this. And I'm making more than I'm going this way. You know what I mean?
You're
Like,
like, but there must be something in this, you know?
yeah.
Well, let me since you brought up Hustler's Dream and we're talking about that right now, tell the viewers and the listeners how they can find you on social media and how they can get some of this great merch. Because I saw today that you did some drops and some things were getting shipped out. So definitely let the viewers and the listeners know how they can find out more about you and your presence on social media and also your merchandise.
You can follow me at on Instagram at Big Blockz. That's with a Z. 100. That's my Instagram. DM me. That's another thing with me. It doesn't matter. Like, this is, if you know, if you remember, this is my second page,
Yes.
right? We can get into that stuff later. This is my second page, and even when I had the big following, I messaged everybody back,
Yes.
everybody.
Yes.
So you can DM me, because sometimes there's colors that I don't have out right now that we can work on. I can get you a color that, I don't have right now. But I also have Hustler Dream Clothing on Instagram. So that's the Instagram. I also have the website hustlersdreammerchandise.com. So you can hit up all those platforms. Um, yeah, and you'll get me straight up.
And
I
that's the
right
God honest truth. I mean, every time that I've reached out to you, you've been absolutely responsive and I support. I remember when I was like this man is turning his life into basically a playbook that anybody can look at, open it up and say, hey, no matter what you have set before you, you can definitely make your dream come true. And
yeah,
I love how you made the analogy. You're like, if I can do this in its illegal form, then guess what I can do legally and
yeah,
put my own brand on it and make something and have it to the masses. I mean, here I am in San Diego, California, you're in Toronto, and it's just like it's all over. And like you said, your family is all over, mainly in the Brooklyn area. And so that's amazing that you are able to have that flow, that ebb and flow of what you're doing. And so I congratulate you on that and definitely sharing your story because it's positive. And I think we need more of that. I mean, as you know, no matter if you're in Canada or in the United States, the Black community, there is sometimes a negative presence that emanates not only inwardly but outwardly as well. And I think it's up to us to make a true and show what a true depiction of African Americans who are doing things, doing it right, and definitely making their mark in the business world. And I love that you also mentioned about gaining that business acumen because you can have a great product, but if you don't have the business acumen to push it out and market yourself, then no one will ever find out about it.
yeah. It's
So I
it's
applaud you for that.
it's necessary, and I think that was one of my things too. Is like, I I I try to be as real as possible, and
Oh, absolutely.
once again, like, I have a lot of discussions in a day, with a bunch of people, my management, marketing, everybody, and I had a discussion today about being fake and being
Mm,
real. And it's funny because even when I started on Instagram, right? Um, if I, like, let's say I had 500 followers at the time, and if I would DM somebody, even friends of mine who were doing things in the music business, I DM them and they would never answer me. And if I ever seen them, in person, they were like, "Oh, I'm just really busy. I have too much followers to really see messages." When I got up to like the 7,000 point, I was like, "You guys are lying," because I see every single message that comes my way. And I think that's what makes, people stand out, because I want to touch the people. Like, I don't ever want to get to that point where I just can't touch nobody. I don't want to,
mm.
I can't say, "Hey, thank you. You like my music. Thank you. You supported and bought something. Thank you." These are things that are very important to me. I think people are important. These are the people who make us. These are the people who support us, hold us up. So, you always got to show that love back and turn around and say, "Hey,
Mhm.
I love you too. I respect you too. I'll support
For
you
sure.
too. I think that's it's a huge problem for a lot of us, but trust me, that's the best way to go. Respect will never be, lost.
There's always power in connectivity. And I think it's that human side of things that sometimes we miss because we're living in such a fast paced world where we have technology at our fingertips, literally. And like, I mean, it speaks to how we're doing this interview right now. And like, literally, we're doing it via Zoom. You're in a whole nother country, but it's just like, guess what? We still can connect, we can still make a difference, and we can collaborate together. I
Yeah.
have a really good friend and also a fellow podcast host who is all about connecting and collaborating. And there's something to be said about that. And it's more specifically in our communities. I think it's really important. Again, I cannot iterate this enough, is that we need to show the positive sides of things. And I mean, obviously, we know not everything is positive, but definitely, even when you have something that comes from a negative, you can always put a spin on it and make it positive. And I love seeing what you're doing something that you absolutely love and you're full of passion about, but in turn, you also are making, you realize this is a business. I need to make money. I have to put food on the table to feed my beautiful children, and take care of my family. And so I think it's really important that that gets highlighted as well. So keep doing
Yeah.
what you're doing, bro. You're doing it. You're definitely doing it. And I'm watching. I love, as I'm scrolling through my Instagram, I see you on there and you're making an impact. And much like how I first got attracted to see what it was that you were putting out there and what you were marketing, and I was just like, what is shrugs? And then I come on here and I see, and it's like, wow, I've been a fan and I'm still a fan. I'll continue to be a fan. So keep doing what you're doing for
I
sure.
think also to touch on what you were saying too is, I think one of the, and I know this is I guess an issue between Canada and the States, is sometimes we don't we never understood the line. So we're like, okay, Canada's different. People up there are different. They live, it's safer. I remember people used to like, do you live in an igloo? I'm like, no, it's
I was one of those people who used to think that back in the day. I'm not gonna lie.
and I've always told people, I'm like, we're very, especially in Toronto, we're essentially like almost an extension of the States. We're extremely similar to a lot of the States.
Okay.
Um, and we go through the same things. I can't remember. I'm trying to think who it was who made a comment asking. I think it was when the Raptors won, and they were asking the Raptors about what they're going through with Black Lives Matter up here. We go through the exact same things. Police murdering black, young black men and women, stuff like that. It's really, really, really important to understand that we come from the same thing. Sorry, hold on, I'm just getting
You're
a call.
fine. You're fine.
Sorry. Yeah, we come from the exact same thing. Like even when you look at a violent crime rate, and that's where I was getting to. Sorry, the violent crime rate for both of us. Hold on. Sorry.
I just appreciate you taking the call. I know you are very busy and you've been on the road for this last week. So I appreciate you being able to fit me in and take the interview. So hey, we're here for it.
Sorry. Okay, let me focus. Hold on. So yeah, the violent crime rate in Toronto is so high. People don't realize that in North America, which is the United States and Canada, we are probably, I think, the fourth highest for violent crime. A
Wow.
lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I
It is
didn't know that.
nuts here. So, I remember even back in the day, I'm not going to name any names out of respect, but I remember even we have something called Caravana every year, right? And with Caravana, a lot of artists come up from the States. It's a huge thing. And I remember one year, I guess Americans figured out like, okay, this is a spot. We're going up there, you know what I mean? And they had the same perception of Canada. Like, oh, Toronto, it's safe, it's nice, it's like not nice, pretty women. We're gonna go up there. I remember that year, so many artists got robbed it was nuts. We were like, it was out of this world. Like some of our, the famous artists that we listen to every day were Rob, Gunpoint, so we go through it up here. So we have, whether it be on a positive level or a negative level in things that we need to fix, there's such a connection there because we go through the same things that, in the States that you guys go through.
It's good
And
to
I'm
say
just,
that because I think sometimes we feel like it's just an us issue as opposed to it being something that's global. And I think it's really important to for people to understand that because in that understanding we can come together. And I mean, there's power in the masses, let's say that. And there's power when you have a large group come together to enact change. And so thank you for sharing that portion of it. And yes, granted, you may just be right across the border, but I think it's really important to highlight that this is not just a United States issue. This is a global issue that's happening. So thank you for highlighting that as well.
um,
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, I know that your music career is has been stellar and it's going to continue to grow. That's without a doubt. And I love that your business, as far as your merchandise and all the things that are supporting you in your musical growth. But like as the man, as Blockz the man, that's a dad and you're doing dad stuff, how do you balance, having a family and also having this amazing musical career?
I'm not even lie, it's hard. It is really, really hard, especially right now with the pandemic. You know, if when my daughter's home or my son's, it's crazy because it's like I'm getting emails, I'm getting messages, and I'm having mini meetings, and I'm helping with homework. So it's really hard, but you know what? You gotta find a balance. And I remember J. Cole came out with a record, and he was talking about 21 Savage, and he says like I realized he was really real when he brought his kids to the studio, and
Fact.
it's like like the other day I sat down with my daughter and I said, come, and she's only 5. I'm like, come here, sit down with me. We're gonna go over some beats. She's like, all right, Dad. So you got to involve them somehow and show them what you're doing because it's also, uh, you know, generational wealth in the form of education, not necessarily money, right? So you're turning around and you're showing them, this is what I need you to focus on, understand is that this is how you build a business. This is how, if you want to run this business, this is what you could do. Come with me, go to the factory with me, when I'm producing clothing. Stuff like that. Do you want to come to the studio? Do you want to listen to my music? Be here. You're going to be the first one to listen to my music. What do you think? Right? So
They're the
that's
unofficial listening party. I love it.
big time. So I've got to really connect the two, the best that I know how. I have even if you look at my website, hustlersdreammerchandise.com, on there, all the pictures there, that's my little brother. So I try to keep the family involved as much as I can. Don't go overboard because you can't have everyone in the family in the business.
I've
But
learned that.
you know what I mean? It's hard. It's not easy. So, you know, I try to involve my family as much as I can. You know what I mean? And mostly input and just help on the back end. But yeah, I try my best to balance it out. And sometimes I just block out days. There's days where I'm like, okay, Saturday, Sunday, there's no music that's gonna happen. I'm focusing on the family.
I love that. You said something that's very pointed and really crucial. I think overall, but definitely in our communities, I think it's really important, and it's an ongoing theme that's here on this platform is lift as you climb. And I see you doing that with having your, family being very much involved in the business and you're showing by example and leading the way. And so can't go wrong there. That's always a positive experience, not only for them, but for you as well.
Yeah.
And I think definitely having, like you said, that having that generational wealth that we instill, and not that it has to be monetary. You
Yeah.
can't take this away from me,
Mm-hmm.
you know. The only way this is going to go away is, God forbid, I'm not any longer here, or I have some kind of catastrophic illness. But your mind, like they said, is a terrible thing to waste. So you
Yeah.
definitely want to make sure that, they're getting all of those good seeds. And it sounds like that you're doing that. So it's great to hear that you have that balance going on. Are there any new projects that I know you mentioned that you have a new record that just came out? Are there any other new pop projects that are in the works, or anything that you can drop here with me?
A lot. So I'd gone through, I want to say August. It's funny because I had a little bump in the road. We'll probably discuss that off here, but I had a little bump in the road, and it had stopped me from doing anything up to pretty much now.
Okay.
And um, we did 127,000 streams on Touchdown.
Wow. Okay.
Look at it over the year. A lot of people are like, yo, you did well for the year. And I have to correct people. I'm like, that was 3 months. I mean, sorry, not 3 months. That was 3 weeks. And they're like, what?
Wow.
I'm like, yeah, that was only 3 weeks. We did those numbers. Um, so I had connected with somebody, DJ Omega Red, which same drugs family. We come from the same family. But he's doing his thing in the industry right now, big time. And he does managing, marketing, design. He does everything. So we connected, and we've just been planning. So 2021, is gonna be huge for us. Um,
That's
you know,
amazing.
we're trying to get some videos done. I was actually talking about it today. I'm trying to do first quarter, maybe 2 videos. And we're also going to work on an EP. And then after the EP, we're going for an album. So there's going to be a lot going on, and we're going to be super busy right now. But it's been a lot. We've been trying to fill in positions. I had someone who does this and this, and I'm like, okay, can you do this as well? We have graphic design in-house, and that's another thing too. Another thing that's really big that a lot of people skip out on. You got to build a team. It's so important. One of the
It
most
is.
ignorant comments I hear is, I don't need anybody. And I'm like,
Not the case.
you ever, like, you know what? I explain it like this to my kids. I said, listen, how many times we sit down and we're like, I don't need you. I don't need anybody. And then you take a walk to the store, and you go and you buy a soda at the store and a bag of chips, and you walk back home. Who built that sidewalk? Whose store is that? How did the chips get there? How did the soda? Like, you need people.
You need people. That's absolutely correct.
So you always need a team, and it's important, And I have a decent team. I have production right now with that team, um, marketing, managing, everything is there, and we're getting everything put together to work together as a team to release the EP and the album. It's gonna drive me crazy more than anybody else because I'm so picky with what I do. But yeah, I got another song coming too that's done, but that
Cool.
one's on the hush.
Okay.
Um, that one's called Rolly. So nobody knows about it. This is the first time I'm telling anybody about this song. It's called Rolly. That song is coming, and I played it for a few people.
Okay.
They're like, yeah, that
You heard it
yeah.
here first at the All About the Experiences podcast. Rolly is on its way. So I'm here
Yeah.
for that. Thank you for sharing that with me
Well,
and the listeners.
you're welcome. So I'm trying to give some more light here. I'm in the dark.
I know we caught you, and I know that you're busy and you're on the road and you're doing big things, and I'm so appreciative again of your time. Before we start, closing down here, is there any shout outs that you want to give?
Shout out to my family, big time. Without you guys, I wouldn't be anywhere. Um, you know what? Omega Red, love you. Jose Messiah, drugs. You know, love you guys over there. Anyone who helped me, period. Shout out to you,
Thank
for
you.
even believing me in a little bit. I'm so ecstatic to know that anybody could sit down there and be like, yo, I believe in what you're doing. So shout out to everybody, period. fans, haters, I don't care who it is. You're motivating me, making me, a better person. Um, that's it, man. I'm just happy. Period.
Well, I'm
Let me say,
certainly happy to have you here on the platform, and definitely you have been so candid and shared so much with us. And I'm excited. I feel like I've even learned a lot more about you in this session, and you're doing so many positive things. You are also shedding light that, there are some communal issues that are not only just here in the States, but also across the border there in Canada. And I think the more that we bring light to those situations and support each other globally, we can definitely eradicate that to some degree. And so I look forward to a time where that will be present. That'll be ever present. And I know that, we're getting towards the end of the year and the holidays are fast approaching. I want to wish you and your family, I say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever it is that you celebrate. And
Merry Christmas.
definitely, I wish you a completely prosperous 2021 because as you shared with us here today, you have a lot of great things that are coming our way, and I'm excited about it.
Thank you so much. Same to you, and all the best. I've listened. Anytime you're ready, I'm here. Look at me. I'm on the road right now. I'll make the time.
I
I'm
love
right
it, and I appreciate that. Well, in
anytime.
closing, as I always share with my listeners and viewers, we all have to realize, much like what you said, we have to depend on others. We can't do this by ourselves. We want to lift as we climb. We want to take care of each other. But more importantly, we want to take care of ourselves. So thank you again for coming on All About the Experiences and have a very wonderful holiday season and definitely a prosperous new year.
Same to you. Thank you for
Thank
having me.